ladies, today we have two of our WiP members who are global citizens and would like to talk to us about expat living. Welcome Archana Singh and welcome Roopa Seshadri.
Thank you so much.
Here.
Okay, let me just read out their current roles and titles. Archana is the Chief Administrative Officer at the Vehicle Sales Authority of British Columbia. And Roopa is an AVP in Onboarding Programs for Caliber Home Loans, where she leads a national team of onboarding managers. I would like to share with all our members that these two women are very, very accomplished. So when I read their resumes, I don't know what to miss out and what to keep. I'm going to tell you that, Archana, you've been in Canada for how long now?
15 years, ma'am.
Yes. And Roopa, you finished 10 years, right?
Yes, 10 years.
So Archana has earned her place as one of Canada's top executives, thought leader, trusted advisor for the companies and executives and teams she leads. Roopa is responsible for deploying a wow employee experience for new hires at Caliber, and is also on the board of Dream, an employee resource group that focuses on empowering, mentoring, and developing women in the workplace. So girls, this is really good. And I know I'm going to really post it for our members to read your resume. That'll be interesting. But one thing I definitely want to do today is read out the education of these girls, because they just didn't stop in the beginning after doing their MBAs, but they went ahead and kept studying. It's one part girls I'm really impressed. Archana has a highly decorated educational background with an honors in management, MBA in marketing, and then certification in project management from McMaster's University. Roopa was an MBA in HR and marketing in India, and she went ahead and did MS in organizational dynamics at UPenn, which, if you guys know, is a Ivy League. And her focus area was leading and managing change. She's also a SHRM and SAP certified, and is right now pursuing the change management certification. Girls, this looks really, really nice. And I'm really happy to welcome you both, because I thought our members should get a perspective from two of our global citizens who are living abroad. So Archana, I just wanted to ask, my first question was going to be to both of you, that when you were little girls, did you dream about living abroad or studying abroad at all?
You know what? Not really, because when I was a little child, actually, my dad, he's a scientist, and he was very, very accomplished. So he's taught all across the world. And I think when I was 2 and 3, we were settled in States, and actually we went back because he wanted us to raise us in India. So no, I didn't plan to come to Canada or US or any of that. That was not the thought process when I was a child.
What about you, Roopa?
Not ever. There were no plans of coming to the US, anywhere abroad. I think my dream was kind of to become join the Indian Air Force as a fighter pilot. But I think at that point, that path was literally non-existent to very challenging. So that kind of changed. I wish I was born in 2015 but no.
We all feel that the time for women is now, when I see a lot more women coming into defense forces. Yes, Roopa, I get what you mean. Both of you had very successful innings in your careers in India right from the beginning. Tell me about this phase of your journeys. Roopa, let's start with you.
So I think from a career perspective, I was very career focused, very driven, had a lot of learning and growth, both in India and here. So from the phase perspective, I think the plan was always to stay in India. It was never that, hey, I need to, settle abroad or anything. One of the things to kind of add into the question as to why possibly I moved to the US was after I got married, I had an arranged marriage. So I was my parents were I was looking for grooms in India, and that was like nobody from the US, nobody from here. So it was funny but fate had different plans. So work-wise, my husband ended up moving back to the US, and I stayed in India with my daughter, and we tried to make it work. And then we realized at one point in time we had almost made about 7-8 trips in that year back and forth with a young child, and that's when we said this is not happening. So we need to figure out somewhere, put down a route somewhere, figure out what's going to work for us. And that's how this whole move to the US happened, just for our own sanity. So I think that's kind of where we came. And the long-term plan is always to come back to India and kind of, grow from there.
You were already heading OD and talent management in your roles in India, and you've been working for a decade or 9 years or something before you left?
Yeah, so I've been in tech and financial services. So I was in Infosys, and then with ADDR, then I moved to HDFC Bank, which is where I got to meet you and learn and grow under your mentorship. So, and then from there, I moved to becoming the head of talent management, and then from there to Birla Sun Life as the head of organization development. I even served on the board of an energy company back in India. So I led all their projects and businesses and human resources function. And then I decided to go the entrepreneurial route, kind of figure out what's working and what's not working. And I think having all those gigs really helped.
All right. So, Archana, what prompted your decision to relocate to Canada?
So, ma'am, like you know, I started my career with HDFC Bank. I was amongst the first group of management trainees that the bank actually recruited and put the program together. I had a great learning experience from the bank, and then I moved into Reliance Infocom, where I worked with the CEO, and I was his right-hand project manager for about 4 years. It was a time of immense learning, and it was a wonderful experience. But I used to come home every night at 10:30, and I used to sit down and think, okay, how am I going to balance a family? I just got married at that point of time, and 4 years into it, I was thinking, okay, I do not want to be an absentee mom. So how do I juggle all these pieces together? And I do not want to move out of, working, which is the love of my life. So how do I balance that? So that was a huge, I think, factor, which started us thinking, okay, we need to find a different option where we could balance both of these dreams together.
Why Canada?
That's
just picked up your baggages and just...
Absolutely. Just like that. We got our residency in Canada. So me and my husband, we packed our bag. We didn't know a soul here. We packed 4 suitcases and we landed here, and we thought, okay, if we don't like it, we can always go back home. And that's about it. So it was the adventure of a lifetime for sure.
Yes, I can imagine. Moving abroad is often a very overwhelming experience, and the unfamiliar landscape, a limited social network in the beginning, and new culture, sometimes new languages, and they often feel very burdensome. And specifically, the challenges and obstacles in the relocation process and then the adjustment period, it can be very, very stressful. So I know when you're saying that you kind of landed there, Archana, when did you get your first break? How difficult was it?
I think Canada welcomed me with open arms. I think this is quite a story. So before coming to Canada, I had applied to few of the good companies out here in Vancouver. And our choice to come to Vancouver is not a very common choice, because people try or choose Toronto quite a lot because that's the financial hub and there are more opportunities. But the weather and the natural beauty of Vancouver really attracted us. So we thought, we'll find something. So I had set up an interview with a technology company here as soon as I came in. And it was interesting, while I was talking to the CEO of that company, he had actually shortlisted or almost finalized a candidate, but he enjoyed his chat with me. So he thought, okay, might as well wait and meet her. So we landed on a Saturday evening, and Monday morning was my interview with him. So I met him, and I think an hour and a half in the interview, he said, you know what, I'm going to hire you. And it was like that. And he said, when can you join? I was like, okay, give me a couple of days to figure out where I'm putting up, where do I stay? So Monday I got the role, and Wednesday I started working.
Wow.
So within 4 days of coming to Canada.
New country, absolutely no support system, and motherhood. Roopa, how did you manage when you moved to the US?
I think one of the most important things about that was, being able to define and accept what it means to have it all, right? I realized, and that came over a period of time. And one of the biggest realizations I had was that hey, I don't have to do it all. I just have to be smart about figuring out how I can get this done. And that realization really helped me navigate everything that I needed to do. A couple of things that really helped me was being able to plan, right? Break down everything meticulously and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how I need to get it done. And this is how in advance I need to plan for stuff. Communication, being extremely clear about my communication. And that included even my spouse to say, hey, this is not fair. You need to pitch in on this. I can't cancel a meeting just because you need to do something. My work is as important. And setting those boundaries, a no is a no. And there's like, for instance, time blockers. I know that I have to go for a carpool pickup, and then I'm just like, that 3:00 is blocked on my calendars. That's a non-negotiable. So that way you set your boundaries. And also more importantly is asking and hiring help as you need. If it meant a full-time nanny, if it meant carpooling, you figured out what system worked for you. Getting cleaners in, because sometimes you can be really OCD about stuff, and then you're like, this is not worth my time. Because I remember when I first came to the US, I was like, I couldn't get stuff in the dishes in the sink, and I would just be cleaning. And then I realized it's just one coffee mug. It can wait. So, yeah.
I know what you mean. When you move, actually the entire bit about organizing your finance and money management, that is daunting. Moreover, although there is an exciting part of moving countries, it's always about that everything which is very mundane and boring, even which could be grocery picking up or getting your clothes dry cleaned, everything seems like an adventure when you're in a new country, right? Archana?
True, 100%, ma'am.
What was your experience like?
Ma'am, I think my experience was pretty much the same. I think everything can be a bit overwhelming as well as very exciting as well. And I think for me, I really thrive on clarity. So, defining what it was for me, like for me, it's the balance I needed to have and in my family life and my professional life has always been the guiding star. I think the huge support or from my husband. He's just an amazing partner, and he's definitely my support system. And I think he understands me perfectly. So he knows that I have this drive that will keep me going. So, and I would not want to just be happy by just being home. So just trying to balance. And like Roopa said, a lot of those, using those tactics of organization, being methodical, and not get into exhaustive perfection. A lot of our women's, we kill ourselves. We sweat the small stuff. We're always after exhaustive perfection. So, things will happen, and you can only control things which are in your power of influence. So having that kind of clarity takes the pressure off quite a bit. So those are things that helped.
You married a college sweetheart, didn't you?
Yeah, I absolutely married a college sweetheart.
You welcomed your first motherhood in Canada, isn't it?
Yes. And that's also very interesting. What I learned is that the motherhood, when you're needed in that capacity as a mother, is the same time when you need to put all that energy into work. So they run at a parallel space all the time. So yes, as soon as we came here, in my head, the clock was ticking in my head. So I was like, okay. So we had our son 1 year after we came to Canada. So it was quite a lot of juggling for sure.
All right, I can imagine. And you both have 2 children now. So your decision to have a second baby was planned when you were more settled at that point in time? Both of you, Roopa?
Yeah. It was kind of, I think we had figured out by then that, hey, this is where we're going to be. This is what our future looks like. And it was much more settled. I definitely didn't want to have my second child on an airplane traveling back and forth. So.
What about you, Archana?
Yeah. So for me too, I think the few things that we thought, it was definitely a planned decision. Couple of things that were part of the planning was, I think, thinking that having 2 kids at university at the same time would be tad expensive being in this country. The second was having 2 small kids at the same time would be obviously not that easy. Both my children are C-section, so I had 2 C-sections. So definitely having 2 surgeries. I knew after the first that my second is going to be a C-section. So spacing them out definitely was was a planned choice. And after my daughter was born, I had a lot of medical complications. So I think at that was another crossroads in my life, which, either I could just take it easy from there, and that was a choice, that was a fair choice, and concentrate on what I had, or actually push the envelope and see what I could do. And I chose to push the envelope. So that was a choice I took, and that's been a great journey.
I know both of you, when we were talking earlier, very, very close to your parents and your families. So I really want to understand the feelings when you go initially, and there are days when you feel extremely lonely, because it's a common challenge for any expat who moves abroad, and it takes time to form bonds with people who are there and get yourself embedded in the social and professional networks which you had already so wonderfully created in India. So how was it? And tell me a one odd day in your lives when you just are too overwhelmed by everything that's happening. Any anecdotes that come to your mind?
So for me, I think what you just said, some days you really, really miss those. You miss the having a cup of tea with your mom and just chatting. Or, my father-in-law, when I got married, anytime I used to come back from work, he used to say, get some hot food for her. She's tired. And that the care, the pampering that you get from family. And suddenly you realize here that you are the homemaker. Your children are looking up to you for that. So at times there's no one to give you that cup of tea that you've been dreaming of all day. So and not having the ability to just be present with your parents can really make you down. So definitely those are those days when it gets you down for sure.
Roopa, what about you?
Oh, there are so many anecdotes. But I think there's so many times I've said, oh, I miss this that my mom used to make. Or, when you're especially, or, you're down, you just want that cup of coffee, or, yum dosa she makes hot and, gets it to you, or just chat with your dad or play some games. Listen to his stories. I think I did miss that a lot. The good thing is we made it a point that, we travel to India every year, at least to spend that extra bit of time. And then sometimes we try and get them every other year, or, have them over for a year with us, so that, that bonding still continue. So in that way, I think I was very lucky. But that said, there've been a couple of things, like I had a fall and torn all my ligaments in both my legs. I was in a wheelchair for 2 months. And at that time, it was COVID. And then we had my younger one at home. We had my older one virtual schooling. And at that time, I was just like, oh my goodness. But a good thing is I kept telling my husband, saying, I miss my mom's dosa, and kind of trained him to make dosas for me. So I said, I really want that. That's the biggest, so that'll put a big smile on my face. And one of the nice things about where I stay is I love my backyard. It cheers me up instantly, because it's there's a lake behind and then a green belt, and I really don't, it's completely with nature. So just sitting there, hanging out, and having a network of really strong friends, which is very informal. Yeah. Like, even though we are in the US, I just call them and say, hey, I'm low. Can you make chat for me? I'm coming over. Or, just doing something like that, or them coming over was really helped me through those phases, of being on and thinking, what on earth am I doing here?
Very, very well said. Actually, I mean, if I, when you go overseas, this is one of the things sometimes, that freedom of even leaving your country takes you to this path of actually self-discovery and independence in a way, because you set your own rules, as you rightly said, with your children and with your parents.
Yeah.
So both of you seem to go, please.
And also for things that you lose, it's always things that you gain too. It's a way of looking at things. And for me, it's always finding that silver lining. Yes, I cannot do that, what I used to do back home, but what I can do here, like going for a bike ride at 5 p.m. with my son, I would not be able to do that back in India. Or just being so as a present mom during their activities. roaming in this beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, like we say, the air is so fresh, doing things like kayaking that I would not have maybe experienced back. So it's always finding that silver lining. And like Roopa said, having that, tight group of friends that become your family, that actually become your second family here, removes the edge for sure.
And in a true manner, that 2 o'clock friend or the 3 a.m. friend happens
Yes.
overseas because we've had medical emergencies when somebody just comes and say, let me drive you to the hospital. And I was telling my husband after we came back a couple of years back and saying that who is our 3 a.m. friend here? And we have lived in India all across. Why are you asking these funny questions? But then you know the reason, because when you're overseas, you definitely need that cohort around you.
Yes.
And
you say that, Mandeep, about exploring and discovering yourself, because I think the sheer amount of adventure sports, for instance, I love adventure sports, the sheer amount of opportunities here is like amazing. And I don't think also like I have ever discovered my passion for building stuff and putting stuff together, like, even getting a furniture and actually working on it. I don't think I would have done that in India, because I'd just be like, can somebody do this for me?
Yes.
So I think just getting that whole hands-on experience has been a real discovery. I didn't know I was so passionate about doing that.
So with your children now, how challenging it is to integrate this idea of India in their lives?
For me, you know what? I think, like, I see this from two sides. One is the acquired learning that you can give your child, and one is the organic side of it. So for the acquired learning, like Roopa said, we've always gone back to India every year so that they can create that relationships with their grandparents. They can witness India, not just through our stories, but actually living it out. So having that individual experiences. Again, following traditions with your friends here, keeping that alive, keeping that set of uncle and aunties that we've grown around to give them the same opportunity, and having those friends really make a difference. So those are, I think, all acquired ways of doing it. Even, putting their names, like both my children's name, Arjun and Alicia, are very Indian names, and helping them understand the importance of that name, how Arjun is, inspired by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and how to get them to have pride in that, so that it's more, the organic way of that. Also, I think children see the best when they see their parents doing something. So I'm very spiritual by nature, so I pray a lot. And when I do that, I've started just noticing my 9-year-old daughter has started doing part with me. So it's just an organic. I'm seeing an organic change happening. And it's not that I'm pushing it, but so I think a combination of acquired and organic tactics or ways of doing things has helped us so far.
That's lovely. What about you, Roopa?
I love the way Archana said the organic and acquired piece, because the organic piece is so subtle and constant that it's very difficult to say, hey, this is the only way that I can do it. I think for kids growing up here, born here, a big part is having that cultural and, identity anchors. What are they anchoring to? What is going to hold them in good stead as they keep growing, so that they don't become very, am I American? Am I Indian? Am I this? Am I that?
Yeah.
I think it's important to give them those anchors. And one of the ways that, a lot of ways that I do it is, Archana said, with visiting family, making sure they have those relationships through music, through movies, through books.
Yeah.
She goes for Carnatic classes, so she gets that anchor of Carnatic classical. She sings beautifully. I can't sing to save my life, but it's so we kind of try and work through that. And even festivals, for example, like the same enthusiasm with which I celebrate Christmas, I make sure I celebrate all our traditional festivals too. Something as simple as, playing traditional games that they've not heard of. So, those old games that we used to play, getting them to play that, and having her teach. So I realized one day that she said there's a game day in school. And I said, what do you want to take to school? And she said, I want to take that, we used to have that In Tamil, we used to call it Pallanguri. So it's like a 12 with shells thing. She said, I want to take that to school. I said, but people are not going to know anything about it. So she said, no, but this is a good chance for me to tell them about this awesome game. So I said, yeah, okay, good. I'm doing something right. So yeah, question. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes, I think it's lovely stories, because I think that can be a challenge. And having lived overseas, I see that a lot of parents struggle that in the early years of their children's lives. So this is fantastic. So how hard has the pandemic been to you and your family? When I read about it, the entire fault lines in the healthcare system across the globe actually came out there, and people were very scared about things which are happening. Everyone has gone through it, but was it the healthcare system? Was it the safety? What was the concerns for you?
I think especially for our family, I was in India at that point of time in 2019 when it really shot up. And we preponed our tickets to come back, and we were very, very lucky because the day I flew, the next day all airline travel just ceased. So we were we just came at the right time. So pandemic has definitely been very tough for a lot of, lot of different areas. We've not been able to come home for the past 2 years, not been able to meet our parents. The kids have not met their friends. The normal, playtime is very restricted. It's a different way of growing up, especially for teenagers now. It's not just meeting in the malls and stuff. It's a new culture that's come with always masks. The distance that has caused, everything is virtual. So the human interaction has really been removed. So people are, I think also there's going to be a lot of effects of that. People have stopped understanding or actually even meet in person. They will always try to find a way to do it virtually now than having a face-to-face interaction with people.
Yes, sir. Rupa?
I think it was interesting for me when I realized how much the pandemic has impacted all of us in different ways. When my 2-year-old, one of the words she said was mask. When we were heading out. So I was like, okay, this is a child who's grown up in COVID, who thinks mask is part of you regularly dressing up and, doing that. And she says wash. So that's basically like every time we go somewhere, she wants to wash her hands or sanitize her hands. And it's interesting that a child so young has absorbed so much of what's happening around us, right?
That means she was born during the COVID, was it? Just before it?
Okay. Just before. She was born in 2019, October.
Yeah.
So she was born, and so I keep calling her a COVID baby just because she was 9 months inside, and then she was born. And by the time we decided to take her out, COVID hit, and she's been indoors. I think that like pandemic that way, like Archana said, redefined a lot of things, how we work, how we build relationships, how we socialize, how we think about work balance, work-life balance, everything, I think, and priorities, right? What is important to you? And in a way, it kind of gave us forced family time to start with initially. And I think that's important because when you're running, you're not really paying attention to a lot of other stuff. And this was an opportunity to rediscover relationships and what works in the dynamics of it. To me, that made a lot of difference. All that said, I think the mental health impact is something we'll all work through for a lot more years to come.
That's true.
Yeah.
Roopa, this question is just for you, and I know with the whole lot of news coming from the last several years, and it has been always there about shooting incidents at campuses, schools, things like that. Does the safety of the children when they're growing up, is it a big concern for you, or?
It's very interesting you asked that because initially when I came and I would read all those incidents, it was something that stressed me out, right? We talk about racial discrimination, we talk about biases, we talk about all of that. But to kind of subtly face that is very, very different ballgame altogether. And I think one of the interesting things, you're talking about shooting, but just to take a step back, one time my daughter came and said, when we were visiting India, she told me, I don't feel different here. And I think that was a big, indicator about sometimes how people people are made to feel differently. It may be very subconscious, but that said, I do worry about shooting. I do.
One of my things about which I want you girls to talk about is your need to constantly upgrade your skills and also keep getting certified, learning new things, areas like that. Um, what prompts you to do that? Is it the systemic thing? Because is the whole ecosystem like that? What pushes you towards it? Because that's one thing which I really feel that people can go to programs here, but not many people through their own volition want to study further. So this is something I want both of you ladies, because I have been reading about all you both up to, and you've written, both of you say you're very passionate about learning and growing. And so please tell me about that.
So for me, it's very simple. Nothing grows in comfort zone. So and change requires energy. So like I explained earlier, when I was at my at the crossroads where I could have taken it easy, I decided to stretch the envelope. And at that point of time, I actually opened up my own company, my consulting company. And it was came up with two goals I had in mind. First was I wanted to get a lot of different diversified experience and learnings in a shorter period of time. Because when you're in a company, it takes time to get your learnings. It, years before you can get to where. So I wanted to really squeeze all of that learning in a shorter period of time. So, and second was to get the confidence that I could do start to end all by myself. And what are the gaps that I needed to see, and those were my gaps to identify and say, okay, this is what I need to get better at. So when I opened my consulting and I started working with a lot of different companies, I understood that, whichever field you get into, project management is a huge piece to manage the project, whether it's $100 or it's a $200 million project that you're managing, everything. And there's a study behind it. So things like that. So first identifying the areas that you're not that great at, and then finding the tools to bring yourself better, I think and for me, growth is very important. Learning, the day you stop learning is basically the day you start declining or decaying. So that's the end of it. So there's no age for me where you can see I've learned it all. There's always a time when you have to keep learning to grow.
That's true. Roopa, we always see that people keep adding titles and salaries and they stop learning. It's a typical thing when people get into their comfort zones. What do you have to say to them? Like Ashna said.
To your point, Mandeep, I think I classify learning as personal learning and growth as well as professional learning and growth. And I think what you say, yes, there are a lot of titles that, come with when you keep growing in terms of, adding those extra masters or extra certifications. It kind of pivots you in your journey. That said, I think for me personally, like Archana said, I don't like to be in the same zone that I'm in. I constantly like to unlearn because possibly I've, learned too much of a bad thing. So I like to keep unlearning and, relearning and then kind of refreshing my brain towards different things and perspectives. And that comes not just from the professional certification, but I think also from traveling, learning a new skill, something as simple as learning baking, for example. So you kind of augment both of that and see, what pushes you, what makes you happy, what makes you want to get out of bed every day. And I think that for me makes a significant difference. You could call me by different titles, but technically if I don't have the opportunity to deploy what I do every day or what I'm passionate about, those titles are not going to matter. So.
Terrific. So my final question, ladies, to you is, what is your secret mantra for success that you would like to share with our WiP members? Archana?
Yeah, okay. So whatever I've learned through my experiences, the few things that I would like to share with our members is, like what I said, nothing grows in comfort. It's comfort, I think, is the death of a lot of things, because you get tied to that paycheck, the comfort, and you stop growing. So keep challenging yourself. The second, what I would want to share is be bold. Don't get into exhaustive perfection. Just keep moving. A lot of us stop it because we want to just get perfect at that. And I think another piece would be for me would be that I see a lot of young women leave the table before they need to. Like, for example, I had my assistant in my team, and she said she didn't want to take up the new promotion that was coming up, and I was like, why would you do that? And she said, because we want to plan a family in a year. And I said, okay. So you're not even pregnant. You don't, so that's going to be 2 years before you even have a child. And you're leaving the table before you even get there. So don't leave. Women go by a list. Women are born planners, but don't leave the table till you really need to, leave. So these would be some of the things that I think have helped me. And don't underestimate your abilities. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in your own abilities. Own your shortcomings. Own and grow with it. Accept yourself. I think we're always trying to go towards perfection, and that gives a lot of birth to a lot of insecurity. So be confident. Don't be too hard on yourself. Life is a journey at the end of it. So I think that would be a few things that have helped me in my journey that I could share.
Oh, fantastic. What about you, Roopa? What's your success mantra?
I think first step was to kind of understand and accept myself, and also give myself opportunities to make mistakes and kind of learn and grow from them. And that way model what kind of behaviors I want my kids to see, and I want my peers and family and friends to be seeing. I think that was one of my key drivers. And like I said before, communication, setting standards up front, keeping those boundaries, and constantly learning and growing. Learn something that has absolutely no bearing on your professional life. Learn something fun. And I think that keeps you going. And that's my secret to success and mantra.
Okay, so this is terrific. I think both of you have said it in your own words, having this absolute clarity about where you're going, being able to accept what you are, and drawing the boundaries, and lots of communication defines things which you have talked about as your secret. But when I look at it, I think the stepping out of the bubbles itself into unfamiliar territories that you both have done it over the years, and getting out of your comfort zone, which you guys brought it up again and again, is where new ideas and new thinking has come in. And I think you're pushing the envelope, to use your words, Archana, all the time. And as Roopa said it, growing personally, professionally, mentally, and emotionally. That really sums it up wonderfully. And I really hope you can continue to keep contributing to all other ideas that we have lined up at WiP. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today.
Thank you so much for having us, ma'am. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for having us and giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts and perspectives.
We just wanted to have a peep in your lives, and I've kind of lost touch with both of you because it's been a decade plus, but it's so wonderful to reconnect again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.